Alrighty, good evening and welcome to Nycos Nightly. I'm Jonathan Albin, Game Master J, your host, and I'd like to take you on a voyage with me, if you will, to talk about all kinds of things pertaining to life and beginning with my primary passion, which is RPG games, role-playing games. And if you are not familiar with that concept, I'd love to share that with you. Role-play games is a mechanism for communication and sharing of a communal experience in a fictional realm generated by the storyteller game master who guides the other players into this shared experience, and the adventurers gather information and learn and build their personalities and become more. Now, tonight we're going to be doing this as we always do, and the first time we've done this in the just chatting environment, because we are sort of embarking on a side mission, and that is to introduce people to roleplay that may not have had an experience with it before. There are, of course, channels that are dedicated to role-playing, whether it be Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder or one of the other titles, or just general tabletop roleplay. And in this case, I wanted to share in the just chatting realm the ideas that we're going to be talking about. Now, I also record these videos and they get submitted up to my YouTube channel, which is at NycosRPG on YouTube. And there you can find 350 plus videos of everything from my game sessions that I've run to presentations that I've made across the country to tips and tricks and techniques like this. And tonight we're going to be adding some more Game Master secrets to that longer agenda, and I'm going to be going over them here. If you haven't yet joined our channel and you like what you're seeing so far, make sure you follow us here on Twitch and join our community over on YouTube as well by subscribing. That way you'll be updated whenever there's new videos that come out. Now, in this case, tonight we want to talk about some points that are really kind of useful for game masters. Perhaps they are new and are just starting into the game, or may have a lot of experience but don't know how to breach into new games groups and to bring more people. So let's talk about those. One of the first is, of course, reading the room. Now, I'm in a completely new space here in the just chatting environment, and while I don't normally do long form videos, if I have persons that come on and communicate with me via chat, I'll be glad to carry on conversations that extend far beyond my normal time frame on the show. So if you like something you're hearing and you want to be a part of it, make sure you jump onto the chat channel and let me know what you'd like to talk about, and I'll add it to the growing list of things that I want to talk about. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is, in the terms of role-playing, one of the greatest gifts that you can give to your games group is to learn how to read the room. And while that sometimes is perceived as being a negative, because a person who is reading the room is playing off of emotions and interacting with people in ways that perhaps were not their primary agenda, the idea here of reading the room is to see what the players are enjoying, what part of the story they are getting the best benefit out of, and give them more of that particular thing. This concept of being able to read the room does allow a game master to extend the excitement and thrill of an encounter by knowing that what is being experienced by the players is something that feels really comfortable to them and really something that they're looking for, and thereby keeping them going. A second aspect of role-playing games that comes up often is the idea of when you are making decisions in game, many times game masters will lean heavily upon the random factors of the game and suggest that players need to use dice to determine an outcome or decide a conditional response. And if you learn when you are being a game master to use dice sparingly, you give the players more direct agency, you're able to tell a more coherent story, and there aren't as many of those unfortunate conditions where you anticipated a certain outcome, but the dice fail you and you got a completely different outcome than you expected. So utilizing die rolling in a sparing fashion simply means that when the dice rolls do matter, they matter a lot, and when they don't matter and you're just wanting to narrate the story, you just continue to press the story forward. When you are a storyteller, and this is actually true even if you are a salesperson, if you are wanting to engage the people with whom you're speaking, you need to learn to write open-ended conversations, open-ended encounters. And by doing so, you let other people's inputs affect the outcome of the conversation. If you want to know something about somebody, ask them an open-ended question and you will get a more heartfelt answer because they have the freedom to go wherever they want to with that result. This open-ended encounter mechanic also means that the players can choose how much of the situation they wish to address in the game and how much of it they'd rather avoid. And by being open-ended, you're able to sculpt the story around their answers and therefore make it a more engaging encounter overall. Now, I mentioned here, always be at the top of your game, and what that really means is you don't want to phone in your role as a game master. If you are the person in any environment where you are directing the outcome, you should at least be present in that moment to make sure that your outcomes are at least directed the direction you want to go. Of course, I'm a little bit blatant in this because I've written a book called Top of Your Game, The Guide to Winning at Everything, and that is available through Amazon.com. If you do Amazon.com search under Jonathan Albin Author, you'll find my page and be able to purchase the book. But the Top of Your Game concept is play to your maximum in terms of being playful yourself. If you want the players to engage, you've got to be engaging. If you want to be excited, you must be exciting. And this energy that you bring to the table brings forth responses from others. And of course, as a broadcaster on Twitch, I certainly hope to build my audience, and I would like to be able to engage with other people. And this is one way where I'm trying to, so much as I can, be at the top of my game and bring you the best information for your game session. And so by remembering that you're there to enjoy the game and be a part of it, make sure you're getting the fun that you should be getting out of it, and don't consider it to be an occupation, a drudge, or work. Because if you're not enjoying it, if you're not getting the thrill out of the gaming, then maybe you should be considering how you're being involved, because it's really about the collective entertainment. Now, you've heard people say that you should never build your castle on sand. You should always build your castle upon a foundation that's solid and secure. Well, I'm going to say, from a storytelling standpoint, it's a lot more enjoyable if you build your house on sand. And of course, this is a pun. I'm famous for those. But with the idea of yes and being a tropic example of utilizing improv in your game session. When you build your castles in yes sand, that means that the players, as you described the story, can pick up and run with whatever they see within the story, and you're going to be able to amplify and make it even more thrilling and engaging and interesting, because you're going to be able to agree with them and move the story forward by merging that concept in with your own. So yes, and we're going to do this as well. And isn't that cool? And when you build your castles in yes and, when you build your stories on this more fluid environment, your players don't get bogged down. They don't feel like they've gotten lost. You're able to give them more purchase, if you will, on the surface of the game environment, and thereby bring them with you to that higher plane of enjoyment. Now, this next one I think is really kind of important too, and that is that in gameplay, the dice rolls don't necessarily have to matter, but when they do matter, make them matter more. And so by allowing players to actually invoke things that are functionally impossible through the story, provides you the opportunity of making things really mystical and powerful for the players without having to compromise your story. Let them perform the miracles. Let them be the ones who make something that shouldn't have happened happen. I had a situation tonight where players that were in the game shouldn't have been able to beat the villain by all rights. They were cornered, they were up against the wall, and yet in that decision, one of them made a call for an action and put themselves in the line of fire and rolled a ridiculously good number. It was staggeringly so, given the number of failures they'd had earlier in the day. So naturally, you have to reward that. And so I was able to put them in the position where when that die roll came up, it changed the world, changed the dynamic, and they became instantly the heroes to the others that were around, because this action was functionally a miracle. It was that 1 in 100 chance, 1 in 1,000 chance that really changes the flavor of the encounter and makes them feel like they were very important and special to the campaign. When you do that, you give them reasons to keep coming back to your sessions week over week, because they who doesn't love that feeling of thrill and excitement, and you know, it doesn't happen every week. It might be it's 6 or 8 weeks before somebody else happens to get to that miraculous place, or even have to deal with the negative of a situation that you've rolled particularly well. Let your players feel the miracles. Let them see and appreciate what's going on, and give them room in the story to make light of it, make value out of it, and build themselves up, because really what role play is about is the players enjoying being in the position of other people in another world where things work differently. This also plays to those situations where there are no dice rolls involved, and that is that you want to learn how to reward players who do particularly appropriate, particularly heroic, particularly dynamic, or just basically beyond the sphere acts. If they do something that was unexpected and is not anticipated to ever be repeated, then sure, let them have that and reward it in game. Find ways to make them feel that value and their worth, and that will therefore come back to you in spades when they play to a higher level of expectation. It's really critical that the players not only feel like they're part of the game, but that they are driving the game and the story matters. And one of the ways to do that is to reward them when they've done something particularly outstanding. From a gamer standpoint, game master standpoint, I recommend every person that is the storyteller to study the improv arts, the improvisational arts, because when you are an improvisational comedian or an improvisational dramatist, you're able to bring much more to the scene, because you're able to roll with it as the other players engage. And by doing this, you're able to create for the times when it's really rollicking fun, you can make it exceedingly so. And in those places where you want it to be particularly poignant and dynamic, you can put that pressure on too. And both of these end up building a better foundation for player experience, because they are getting what they need to get from you. And then finally, develop anthology thinking. And this is if you run campaigns, if you run single shots, maybe you're just a salesman who tells lots of stories. Develop the idea that your stories are an anthology, a group of related stories, so that you can roll from one to the next, because that mechanism gives your players the feeling of continuity. And one of the big pluses of running a long trail campaign where you're running the same story week over week is that players get to be a part of it and want to be engaged in the overall development of the story. But even if you're not running that, if you're running a bunch of single-shot adventures, if you're able to build the continuity from story to story to story Through the idea of them all being an attached or connected anthology, your players will feel that connectiveness, and that will cause them to come back session over session. Alrighty, we're going to move from the game